Are you a high-performing parent, entrepreneur, or high achiever in pursuit of excellence? Welcome to the neXus podcast, a podcast custom tailored for families like ours, driven, affluent, and eager to lead extraordinary lives. From rockstar stay-at-home moms to high-producing CEOs, we choose to model success for everyone we are surrounded by. We prioritize health over sickness, embrace a vitalistic lifestyle, and seek to tap into the limitless potential that God has bestowed upon us. I'm Dr. Daniel Kimbley, your host, and on this podcast, we'll uncover the secrets to living a fulfilling and abundant life, where you and your loved ones can thrive physically, mentally, and spiritually. Together, we'll forge a path to greatness and unleash your God-given capabilities. Get ready to say yes to a life of true prosperity and well-being. This is the neXus Podcast. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. And I probably should have done this episode like 235 episodes ago. Maybe more than that when you're listening to it. But anyway, nonetheless, what I want to do on this episode of the podcast, I want to talk about what the word neXus actually means, why I created my practice, what I think it stands for in the community, and how I think you could benefit by either listening or just being connected, which I'll talk about connection a lot here in a second. And I'll talk a little bit about chiropractic too, because obviously this is what I'm most passionate about. I feel like this is what God brought me on earth to do, is to spread this message of health and healing, to allow people to be more connected to what I'll share in just a second. And so before we get too far into the episode though, what I want to do is I just want to simply define the word neXus. When Heather's my wife, if you don't know, if you're listening for the first time, when Heather and I decided that we wanted to name our practice neXus, it was a journey, and as soon as we heard the word and we learned what it meant, it was like nothing else. It was a no-brainer. This had to be what we named our practice. And so here's the definition of neXus. There are two different definitions. We use and operate by both of them in the context of our office. The first definition of neXus is this, is that it is a connection or series of connections linking two or more things. So the way we think about the human body, the way we know that the human body operates, the way that God created the human body, is that without a brain, life is not possible, period. So when we are focused on your brain with the chiropractic care that we provide, we are literally focusing on the neXus, the thing that connects your body, each individual body part, each individual organ, each individual cell to a central location is your brain, is your nervous system. And so we focus on the nervous system because it's literally your connection to life. When we talk about the brain, yes, it connects all of our body parts. Like literally every cell, tissue, and organ is under the guidance, under the control of our nervous system. And like I said, if we don't have a nervous system, if we don't have a brain, if we don't have a spinal cord, life is literally not possible. And so what we focus on is obviously optimizing that nervous system so that it's functioning at 100%. And so the reason that this is so important to us is because it's literally connecting you to life and connecting you to a quality of life and connecting you to a long life, connecting you to a fruitful and joyous life and all of these things. But there's another piece of this as well, is you got to remember that the frontal cortex of the brain, the front part of your brain, that we are affecting every adjustment that we do inside of our office, that frontal cortex is responsible for your connection to other people. It's responsible for your intimacy. It's responsible for your emotional intelligence. It's responsible for your faith. So when we talk about connection to God and you being able to sense that or not sense that, it's connection to your hope. Like this part of the brain that we affect when we're doing our adjustments is literally, it's the connecting, it's the central most important point for an expression of life that is at 100%, not less than. And the only way that you can be functioning at 100% is if you have a healthy functioning brain, because that is what connects you to life, because without it, life isn't possible. Sure, you can be alive, but not living, right? And like when I think about the difference between alive and living, like alive is I'm just laying here not doing much, but living is like full on expressing my passion, expressing my joy, doing things that I love. Like I'll share a simple story with you because I can't not share this stuff because it's so powerful and it's so real, and it literally shines a light on every single thing that I ever believed to be true about chiropractic before I ever even got my doctorate, is that what we're doing is connecting people to what God meant them to be. We're literally connecting people more so to God. So when I have a client come in who's been with us for less than 2 weeks, and this client tells me dead in the eyes, she says, the biggest thing that changed since I started coming here is not that my pain's decreased, but my pain has decreased. But that's not what's changed the most. The change the most is that I noticed that I have this new fire and I have this new reinvigorated passion to go after the dream that I never thought was possible, the dream that I had given up on like 5 years ago, 8 years ago, and now all of a sudden it's come rushing back to me with this vengeance, and I can't help but do research and call schools and do all the things that I'm doing to try to go after this thing again that I had long forgotten about. Why is that the case? Because we have connected her back to herself. We have connected her back to source. This is not about me. This is about helping people live a quality of life that is worth living. I get so fired up about this principle. This is why we call our practice Nexus. It's not some fancy gimmicky marketing thing. Like literally, we want to connect people to the best versions of themselves. We want to connect people to being the best husbands and the best wives and the best spouses and the best children of God that they could possibly be. And the only way that you can do that is through an expression of a healthy functioning nervous system and front part of the brain, which is what we do in our office. So that's one reason that we call Nexus Nexus, is because your brain is your connection. It's your nexus. It's the nexus to life. The other definition of nexus is this. Is simply the central and most important point or place. And in our office, we truly believe that is the most important place that you could possibly come for your health. For your health. For an expression of health. For a preventative, making sure that you live a long, vitalistic, healthy lifestyle, understanding that your body is self-healing, self-regulating, and self-maintaining. It is the central, most important point or place. We're connecting people to other people who operate by this same principle. It is not the central and most important place for being sick, for expressing symptoms, or for fixing your symptoms, because that is called a hospital. That is called sick care. What we are focused on is health care inside of our office, is your body's expression of health. So many people come to us and they sit down and they say, Dr. Daniel, I have this thing and this thing and this thing, and they diagnosed it with ADD. Dr. Daniel, I have this thing and this thing, and they diagnosed it with fibromyalgia. Or Dr. Daniel, I have this thing or this thing, and they diagnosed it with costochondritis. So whatever the thing is, right? Sciatica, lumbago with sciatica, like there's all these different diagnoses. I have a bulging disc. Guess what? All of that stuff is a result of stress. Those are symptoms from a stress response in your body. And I won't get into that on this episode, but the reason that I get so passionate about this is because the most important place that you could come if you want your body to start to express health, if you want to stop just dealing with sickness, if you want to stop masking the symptoms, and you want to start dealing and taking a healthcare approach, a vitalistic, a preventative approach to how you express life, then the central most important point or place, in my humble opinion, and yes, I love it and I will stand by it, and anybody who's a hater on that can click stop on the podcast and click unsubscribe right now, because you should not work with somebody if you don't think that their business is the best. Like period. Point blank. I know in my heart of hearts that if everybody had chiropractic care the way that we provide it in our practice, the world would literally be a different place. Why? Because we're connecting people back to themselves. We're connecting people back to God. We're connecting people back to their passions. We're connecting people back to health. We're connecting people back to life. We're connecting people back to these vitalistic principles. And this isn't some hippie concept, right? Like this is what all the textbooks talk about, is that your nervous system is the most important organ system in the body. It controls every single other organ system in the body. It controls every cell, tissue, organ in your entire body. Yet, we neglect it. No one knows to care for it. No one knows to do anything for it. And they think that taking nootropics is the answer. When the reality is that we know that your brain gets 90% of stimulation and nutrition by movement of the joints of the spine. Which is why chiropractors who are good at what they do move the joints of the spine in a very specific way to wake up the front part of the brain so that it can connect you. It can be your nexus to a long, fruitful, vitalistic, full-on life expression. And this is why our practice is called Nexus. The most central, most important point or place that connects and links two or more things. We want to connect you to more health. We want to connect you to more presence. We want to connect you to more productivity. We want to connect you to more profit in all aspects of life. And we want to connect you to other people who live in the same world that you live in. We want to connect you to God, which is ultimately what we are all here for in the first place. So my friends, I love you. I appreciate you. I know this is a short one, and I will come at you again next week. Peace.